Ageless Energy Radio. How to feel 22 at any age. Would you like to feel young and vibrant regardless of your age? Never have to call in sick again. Be laser focused and productive all day long. Stop feeling stressed out by your life. Stay calm and confident no matter what. Go to bed feeling peaceful and wake up energized? Ageless Energy is healing your self-generating energy systems through the renewal of your body, mind, and spirit for complete wellness without artificial stimulants or medication. Would you listen? Anyone who wants to feel young, ageless, and productive regardless of their years. Join your host, Dr. Chandler George, as we explore your mind, body, spirit to feel 22 at any age.
Hey, this is Dr. Chandler George of Ageless Energy. How to feel 22 at any age. Well, today our guest is my good friend and cohort in crime, Czarina Harris.
Hi.
Czarina Harris is of the note firm because she buys and sells and does magic with notes, which is kind of how I met her. So welcome, Czarina.
Hello, Chandler. It's nice to be with you.
Now, Czarina, you got a varied background. I never know if you're in Ohio or Florida or South Carolina. And I know You're a gifted speaker and mystery writer, and you even have your own podcast. So if you would, for our listeners, give us a little bit of a background a little bit, as, and how it relates to the mind, body, spirit.
So, I was asked the question recently when I was on a trip, what drew me to, being in the note industry. And I had to sit there and think about it and, just kind of compiling everything over all these years. My final answer, and it's the same answer I'm going to give you, is I just felt like I was led to do it. So how I originally learned about the note industry, because it's a very small, sort of obscure place to be in real estate, was actually from my mom. She had just bought a house, and I was probably like 17 at the time. So I didn't know anything about real estate, didn't know anything about owning mortgages or having a house or even paying bills, really. And she bought this house and took back a seller finance second mortgage on it. And she didn't really understand it. I really didn't understand it. And just through research is how I ended up finding out about the space. And I just stayed in it. It sort of stuck. I just felt like, I could do something like this. And then everything sort of in my life pointed me in that direction. Everything that I had done as far as odd jobs here and there and freelancing, they all sort of culminated in this one thing. So that's kind of how I found out about the note industry. And then from there, one thing led to another. I ended up working for some companies that helped train people in the note industry. And I have my own business in investing in notes and things like that. So pretty much I'm rather boring because everything I do either revolves around being spiritual or doing work, which sometimes don't go hand in hand, but when you feel like you've been led to do the work that you're doing, to me, they just seem like they go together. So,
well, you said something there right off the bat. Boring and Czarina don't go together. You're the last person in the world to be boring, or I wouldn't even had you on the show if I thought you were boring. You're so entertaining and so gifted, and so. But if you would, and we'll come back to that, explain a little bit of how your spirituality works through your notes or how you feel it does. I mean, if I'm getting deep into Czarina, the mystery of Czarina, this is season 3 of your podcast. It's the mystery of Czarina. Well, how does what you're led to do play out in your work in the note industry? And tell everyone what a note is. Many people don't even know what that is.
Sorry. So a note, in a simple term, it's a mortgage. When somebody asks me, I tell them I buy and sell mortgages for a living. And that's a really good way of just kind of getting the concept over to someone. So when you live somewhere, you have real estate and you buy that with a loan, and it's usually a mortgage or a deed of trust of some kind. So in very simple terms, that's what I do. I buy and sell mortgages for a living. As far as the spiritual connection to it, when I was actually entering into the space, I had my very first mentor. He said to me, no matter what you're doing when you're coming into this space, first of all, he told me don't quit your day job, which I didn't, which I thought I was going to jump in and become this super millionaire overnight. So he brought me back down to reality first. And then the second thing that he told me was the importance of servant leadership. And that was something that has stuck with me as far as if you're going to lead, not only lead by example, but lead by helping people and by being a servant to people, and then that will be reciprocated. So in the note industry, I try my best to, whether it's for my own personal business or if it's for somebody else's and I absolutely get no gain out of it, I try to help people either accomplish something or try to teach them something so that they understand it. I'm one of those proponents who believe in teaching people how to fish instead of giving them fish. So that's where I try to, constantly do as unto the Lord, my personal beliefs, and always put the greatest good, no matter whose good it is. If it's somebody else's good and you just want to congratulate them and be happy for them, that they've accomplished something, I always lead with that. And so that really stuck with me when he said servant leadership. It's something I don't hear a lot in business. And that's kind of how it's coded everything that I've done as far as, like you mentioned, the podcast. The podcast, cost me quite a bit of money to produce, but it's, it's free and it's out there. And what's great about it is that a lot of people are finding it, even though I'm in between seasons. So I'm not currently even making any episodes brand new. And yet we're getting, if not more downloads now than I did when I first launched it. And so,
and what is your podcast? What is that podcast?
My podcast is called Note Inc. Noteinc. And it's funny because I called up a friend and I said, I don't know if I should do this podcast. She's a fellow colleague in the note industry. And she said, Czarina, she said, you can do anything. And a lot of people tell me that, which is great. And that's just something that you should have as positive people around you. But she said, do the podcast. And if it doesn't do well, at least you can say that you tried. And when 1,000 people tell you something and you've heard it 1,000 times, but then that one person says it and on that day it clicks.
Yes.
So that's really what happened. And so I said, well, if I'm going to do it that way, I'm going to throw the book at this podcast. I'm going to make it as crazy and off the wall and what I want as possible. So my podcast is a fictional spy-themed note investing podcast. So I threw the wall at it. I was like, well, I like old-time radio. I like to, hear different accents, and I like a really good storyline, and I like 007. And I kind of merged, being in the note industry with sort of being like a secret agent, because anytime you tell somebody, yeah, I'm a note investor, they kind of tilt their head to the side like a dog does, and they're like, what is that? And so I was like, man, I'm gonna instead of that being a hindrance or something that's a negative, I flipped it into a positive. And I said, note investors are really secret agents because we know how to invest in spaces that other people don't know about. And I just ran with it. And a lot of people at first they were like, what? I don't get it. And now they're like, rooting for the characters and what's going to happen in the story. It's really funny. It's really funny.
I love that. One of the key tenets of healing yourself through your renewing energy systems and mind, body, spirit, especially the spirit part, is that God gave us the ability to be real creative. And most people don't know how to be creative. They lose it after the age of 7, and, and you've retained as an adult the ability to be massively creative in something that truly is boring. Buying and selling mortgages, and looking at paperwork and all this boring stuff. And you've turned it into sexy and fun and exciting and magical. And who doesn't want to be 007 and you get all dressed up and see all the girls and drive the cool boats around Italy or something, Venice. I'm all there. People will come just to listen and go, I'm not sure what a note is, but I know what 007 is and fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really.
And then if it's going to buy me that lifestyle, which it could, well, then they're all over that. And so then you're gaining freedom, which is another thing, it's, to get debt free and to have passive income allows you to do what you're called to do.
Absolutely.
In this life. And you sure can't do it if you don't have freedom of expression and the ability to have freedom of time, which notes can certainly give you. So how have you found that notes have given you more freedom of time, if they have at this point, or they're on that path, so that you can do more what I think you're truly led to do, which you don't even know I'm setting you up, but go ahead.
Well, one thing I like to think very practically, and I'm not, saying or knocking, theory and things like that. I just think there has to come a time where what you think is going to happen has to become real. And for me, notes are a very practical way to free yourself up from, first of all, I tell everybody that I try to work myself out of stress. And I think a lot of people work simply because they have too much stress in their lives and they think that work is going to solve it. And, it's kind of one of these things where I'm like, look, pick a number. What do you need per month so that if you had the choice to work or not, and you can hit that number not working, that you would do it. And for some people, that's just simply paying bills. Some people, I want the freedom to go anywhere I want. So I want that extra money coming in or whatever so that I can go to Italy or Venice or whatever and act like 007.
Yes, it is.
So, and pretend, and have all these martinis around. But for me, notes have been a way, first of all, kind of going back, my mother worked all her life. She was one of those people who was told, if you want something nice, work for it. But she's horrible at saving. So she doesn't have very much in way of retirement. And so for me, notes was just a solution to where my mother, she's in the medical field and she absolutely loves it and adores it, but you can't work all your life. And I'm using notes, and it's kind of provided a way for me to make sure that she's okay. And for me, that's more worth it than just saying I'm in the note industry for the sake of it.
So that's your driving force, is your mom, to help take care of your mom and have the extra money to do it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And,
because she's a service-oriented person, and she's so service, like most healthcare people, that she'll do it to the day she dies because that's who she is. And then the money part is kind of like, you mean I got to have money saved to someday not be able to do this? Doctors and service-oriented people just don't think that.
They don't. They put so much heart into what it is that they do that. And she's got friends who are doctors, and doctors, I'm not trying to offend anybody. They make the worst investors because they think, I know, body parts and anatomy and physiology and all this other stuff. And then when it comes to investments, they think, well, I'm smart in this other area. I must be good over here. And it's usually not the case.
Just defend us all, because it's true, Selena. Just defend me and all the other doctors. I mean, it's totally true. We're horrible at investing because they do exactly what you said. They think that more work, which is really more stress, but more work will get rid of the stress, and it's impossible. And they think the earned dollar will help them actually get ahead and retire someday, which usually for most doctors, especially, it just means a bigger car and a bigger house and more payments.
Exactly.
As opposed to the other. And as you know, and what we're going through, which hopefully will help us achieve more ageless energy, how to feel 22 all the time, which I really like at 53, feeling 22 all the time. And that is more vacations, like we just came in from the Valentine at the River Maya. And so our house, closes here in a couple of weeks, the big one. And what that will do for me is, it's about $700,000 of a flip of money.
Nice.
And when you look at it, you're like, that about more than a steak dinner. That might just be life changing. You know what I mean?
Exactly. If
it's invested right, and then you can help more people and serve more people, as well as live more of the James Bond life or whatever floats the boat in the meantime. Because you know how it goes. When people have all the money they truly want, not just need, but even want, then all of a sudden they wake up and go, at any age, they go, oh, I'm a selfish turd. I need to really focus on other people and be more servant, because people truly do want to serve others once they're taken care of and their pain goes away, don't they?
Yes, absolutely. We are created to do, but more importantly than that, we're created to just be. That's why we're called human beings and not human doings. And so
we're human becoming.
Human becoming. So if you can be who you were created to be, and not use other things as an excuse of, well, I'm not really serving people and I'm not really fulfilling my dreams and doing things like that because, and then you insert excuse, then that's not really living. And so I kind of use the note industry as a way to not fill in that space. I use it as a way to make sure that space stays empty so that whatever God wants to be in that space can be. And so that's the reason I do it. I don't try to.
So you're saying in the way you're saying margin in your life, you want enough margin in your life, whether it's 10, 20, 50%, where you can have the freedom to do a fun podcast with Chandler today, or to fly off to a friend's place and do something and do your full expression and be, as opposed to, oh no, I can't do it because I got to sit in the computer and work another 12 hours today. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think, anybody can do that with whatever it is that they're doing. I just happen to find notes is the best way for me to do that. And it allows me a lot of creative space, because you do need time to think about, what's the next plot twist and things like that. And so the note industry has been really good to me in that I have the time to do that kind of stuff.
Well, let's explore your mind for a second. I mean, anyone who can be creative, and you're extremely creative. I've seen your PowerPoints. I've heard you speak at one of your podcasts. I heard part of one of them. And you're real creative. But yet at the same time, you turn right around and dissect the most analytical spreadsheets I've ever seen, like a mathematician. And I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. Most people aren't creative in one side of their brain and then analytical. And she flips back and forth. It's like, who is this woman? Which, so she comes with a fun package and she's analytical. I don't get that. I mean, do you have any clue? Have you ever thought that through? I mean, about your mind and how special that is?
When you say it like that, it makes it sound really special.
Because it is. Because it is.
I never really thought about it like that, and it's just kind of like it's like asking an athlete, "Why are you so good at this?" They just are, and that's you can't really question the way that you're created. You just have to live it out. So that's the only answer. It's kind of a cop-out answer, but I really don't know, other than I was created that way, that I can dissect and analyze and create really cool and intimate and intricate spreadsheets, and then at the same time create a spy-themed note investing podcast with, voiceover artists and plot twists and stuff like that. I don't really know, but again, I think it just goes back to having the space to do that. And I think a lot of people would discover that there are a lot of things that don't really go together, but because they're unique in how they're created, they're able to express that. But a lot of the times when you're sitting up in a cubicle for half of your life, you don't get the time to do that or the space to breathe and figure that kind of stuff out. So,
well, I think it's a talent and a gift, and I'm glad you got the space and everything in your life to be able to flip back and forth, because it's a beautiful thing to watch. And yes, I do think some other people would have the ability to do something similar if they nurtured it and gave it the shot.
Absolutely.
Full expression like you do. Because you do a good job of full expression, like, well, I'm just going to jump in and try that. Well, I'm just going to jump in. I may offend somebody, but I don't care. I'm going to jump in and just go. And the next thing you know, it's like, oh my gosh, how did she do that? Your podcast is a good example. Well, I'm just going to go do this. And my gosh, you're blowing it up. You're changing lives and changing everything. And it doesn't surprise me, but it's really quite amazing. You weren't trying to be intentional necessarily. You're just like, well, I'm going to be the best that Czarina can be, and let's see what happens.
Absolutely. And I just think about, if I had to do this all over again, would I do it the same way? And if you think of it that way when you're starting, you do put your all into it. And you're like, you know what? If I had to do it over again, I would have done it like this. Why not do it that way the first time? And so, at first people won't get it. A lot of people are like, what is she doing with this podcast? How can you mix fictional radio with investments? That just does not go together. And I was determined to make it work, because that's the idea that came. So it works, and I'm glad that it does.
It totally works. You're a disruptor, as they say in the marketing field. Disruption. Oh, it disrupts. So you watch a car commercial. Oh, this is a disruptor or whatever, which means it's revolutionary and changes the world. I think that's Czarina Harris, and you're one of those people. So I think we already know, but based on what you're doing and everything, what makes you feel like you're 22? Not that you're not 22, but you might be.
No, I'm not that far from 22. But when you're 22, you have this, and this is why a lot of 22-year-olds don't get respect. Is because they kind of still have these rose-colored glasses on. They just think the world is my oyster and I can do anything. And a lot of older people look at them, no, you're going to get slapped down. Life's going to hit you hard. And that's something that's universal about being 22, is that you don't find limitations. You find ways around things. And I think maintaining that is what keeps me thinking and believing that I'm 22, is just not accepting the word no and not accepting obstacles, just finding new ways to get around them.
I like that. I've never heard that described that way, but I like it. So you're constantly then thinking intentionally outside the box. And because that tickles your brain, that makes you feel like you're 22 at any age, because it's, like I said, you're very cerebral. It just sparks your brain. Your inner knower just takes off, as Mark Victor Hansen says. It's when you know that you know, but you don't know why you know. It's just your inner knower taking off, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think that's when the magic truly occurs. And you can make a difference in lives. And then when you're making the difference in lives too, going back to the spiritual side, yes, encouragement and helping them realize their goals and dreams. and letting them realize too that it's not by them, it's by our higher power, so
Absolutely.
that they can hopefully in turn go be their own mini self, or more like a Czarina, and go share the same kind of message and reduplicate. In other words, if you're getting the power of leverage in the money, we need the power of leverage for the spirit, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And the more of that we have, what a better place to live.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's funny now because a lot of that is coming to fruition just personally. I live near a city. I'm going to move further into it, but there's a city called Dayton up here in Ohio, and they called it the Little Detroit. And so it was one of those places where, there was a lot of industry and now there's not, simple story short. And there's opportunities there that, for instance, seller financing could really change just the local economy there. When you don't have conventional financing, which that city does not, because a lot of their properties are worth, less than $50,000, and banks just don't write loans that low. It's a great opportunity for a note investor to come in and say, you know what, instead of me fixing up these houses and waiting for somebody to get a bank loan to cash me out, why don't I just fix them up and finance them myself, and I'll just keep the notes. And not only are you creating more wealth for yourself, but you're also creating an opportunity that otherwise will not be there. It just won't. A lot of people don't know how to think outside of bank financing.
If I was going to buy a house, but I could pay cash for it, or I could get a bank loan and use the cash to invest in notes at a higher yield, which should I do?
Well, I have a personal thing against renting. So a lot of people who buy houses for cash, they usually become landlords. And just a quick story on that. Being a landlord really it kind of sucks the life out of wherever it is. That's why the person who created the Monopoly game, how do you win Monopoly? You win it by literally bankrupting everybody else. And that was the message that was trying to get conveyed. Of course, it's a really popular game, so people don't think about it like that. So for me, if I had the opportunity to just spend all my money on cash, or if I could get, a bank loan and leverage it, I'm definitely going to leverage it. Because who's to say that I couldn't take that bank loan and buy 3 houses, and then the monies that, come from it, I make a profit and make a split. That's kind of getting a little more technical, and I can really go down that rabbit trail.
Well, no, you're even helping me. I'm sitting here going, I got all this, and I'm thinking, I'll just be sure this house is paid off. And I'm thinking, well, if I can get a little loan on it, better to do that and invest and come out with the spread. So if a house is at 4% or whatever it is, 3.5%, 4.5%, and you look at that spread and go, oh my gosh, there's another $1,000 a month in profit or whatever it is, depending on the amount. And even I hear today, I don't naturally think that way, and people don't naturally think that way, which is why they got to hear the message over and over and over again, because, our friends, the people around us, our loved ones, certainly TV, they don't think that way. So we constantly get the wrong message, and we have to be around enough Czarina Harrises to get the right message to remember, there's a better way here, even for simple things like, I'll just pay the house off. No, you might want to leverage even your own house, because that's good debt to be used to bring in other stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, if you could, and another thing is, it depends on who you are as well. There's some people who don't, and probably don't even know that they don't feel right unless their roof is completely paid for. Some people don't even know what that feels like because they've been renting, and constantly when you're renting, you have a new month of stress. But when you live in a free and clear house, that's a piece in and of itself. You've got taxes, but do what's best for you. If you're one of those people who doesn't get stressed that you have to pay a mortgage payment, why not leverage the money that you have and invest it instead of just using all of it to pay off something that doesn't cause you stress anyway? So if it causes you stress, definitely pay off the house. But if it doesn't, then be smart. Be smart with it. You can turn, let's say
you hit the nail on the head. I think for some people, especially it seems like women more than men in general, but if they psychologically think the house is paid for, then they think they're secure, or maybe they even have something to talk about to the other women. Well, hey, my house is paid for. My husband dies. Guess what? It's paid for, or whatever. Even though the money would be better suited doing what we both said, which is investing. You said and turning it over. But the psychological of, hey, I'm out of debt, or hey, my house is paid for. It's such a win. It's such a self-defining win that most people don't have. that many times that's better for their mind and their soul and everything else, isn't it?
Well, not just that, but it affects your health too. So it's like, you're going to have a mortgage payment, and then you're going to have payments for all these medical bills because you're so stressed out. So think of your, it's true, but and again, this is why you have to know yourself. This is why you have to know how you were created and be in touch with that. Because for me, I would much rather pay super, super low rent and invest the rest of my money because I know I can cover my rent in 6 months and, a gig or two or something like that. But for other people, they need that, especially when you're getting older. You just don't want that stress. So, think about it like that. And especially when you're incorporating everything, your mind, your body, they're connected. And if you keep waking up and wondering, why am I so sick? Why am I so stressed out? Well, maybe it's some of the things that you're doing in your life that you don't know are stressing you out and you don't understand yourself enough. So, I would say to your answer, as far as leveraging, make sure that you're leveraging your spirit as well and not putting anything on you that you can't handle or that you would stress out about. I like investing, but I also like to keep peace first, and I like to keep my freedom first.
I love it. We're going to wrap up right there. That's so perfect, Czarina, and I fully agree. And hey, guys, if y'all want to hear Czarina, I think she's going to come to my next event. If not, she will the one after that. But I think she's going to be there. Okay. So if you think she's great here, when do you see her in person? So June 9th, which is a Friday, all-day Friday here in the Trophy Club, Dallas-Fort Worth area, South Lake, is our one-day event. And listen, everybody, you can come for free. You can come absolutely for free. No strings attached, no nothing. I'm not making you review my podcast and tell me if you like it. But you can come for nothing and see what you think. Where we're going to help you grow your life, leverage your life, and build a bigger, better life. And Czarina's going to be speaking a couple times as well. So I would invite you to come. And if you want to get on the informational list or whatever about that, you can also go to chandlergeorge.com/ageless-energy-podcast/ and you can also email support@catchfirecoaching.com, and Leslie will get a hold of you and get you all set up absolutely no charge. And when was the last time you had a deal like that? And you got to hear people like Czarina and myself and Chris Scapatori coming in from Toronto, Canada. So I appreciate you, Czarina, so much for coming on and keeping me in line and even changing my head, because some of those questions, were just for me, basically, that I'm, having to go through right now. So as always, she was one of my teachers, Czarina. And so this gives me a good public forum to ask some of my own questions too. And I really appreciate you, Czarina. And so everybody, I urge you to download this shirt with your friends. Get a hold of Czarina, because she's much more than somebody who's buying and selling notes, and she's a joy to be around, and she'll help change your life too. Thank you, Czarina.
Thanks, Chan.